Welcome to the channel and my review and unbox for the KINGEAR Pro Wireless Controller Gamepad for PlayStation 4 with dual vibration. You can have this controller in any colour you want as long as it's black. Now on the box it says PS4, or P4 I should say. What it should actually say is PS4, so I think there's obviously a marketing issue there on the packaging. We've got some instructions on the box that state obviously if you want to use the controller on the console you basically have to connect it at first with the charge cable supplied in the box, and then basically pressing the home button on the controller will power on the PS4. Now I actually really like that feature because there are a lot of third-party controllers that I've used that don't work for powering on the consoles. You know, in this case you can actually use the home button, which is obviously a replacement for the PS button on a DualShock PlayStation 4 controller because they can't use the PS trademark. But pressing the home button will actually power on the console wirelessly or with the cable, which I really like. Now this controller is compatible with PlayStation 4 wired and wireless. It's compatible with PlayStation 3, which is really cool, but only from a wired perspective, and it's also compatible with the PC. Now with the PC you do have to download the PlayStation 4 driver in order to be able to use this controller. All of my testing has been done on PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. I spent a little bit of time playing on the PlayStation 3 with this controller. It worked fine. It's a great little replacement, so I'm quite happy with that. With the PS4 there were some features I wasn't really expecting on a cheaper controller. Now this controller cost me just shy of £32, 32 Great British pounds. A standard PlayStation 4 DualShock controller is £44.99 on average here in the UK, so that's a saving of about £13. So let's get this thing unboxed. It really didn't want to come out of that box. I can't say I blame it, it's bloody cold at the moment. So we got some kind of gift card there that can go back in the box. Not too fussed about that. Nearly dropped the controller. Just saved it with my lightning reflexes. And we've got our user guide. Very nicely illustrated user guide. Quite thin, but it's got everything in here you need to know about what you can and can't do with the controller, what the buttons do and where they are. Now we've got our USB charge cable, which, as I mentioned before, this is basically about a meter cable. Note to manufacturer, this needs to be at least 2.5–3 meters long, because obviously you're always going to have those scenarios where you forget to put your controller on charge and you have to use the cable, and we've all done it, and it's a pain in the arse when it happens and you have to connect the cable. But this cable is definitely not long enough to be able to play with. It's okay for charging but not play, and the same goes obviously for PS3. You know, you really want a 2.5 meter, 3 meter cable to be able to do that. Most people obviously who've got a PS4 have already got a charge cable, so maybe that's what they're hoping on from a manufacturer perspective, is that you've already got a cable you can play with. So on to the controller. So this KINGEAR Pro Wireless Controller Gamepad is actually really comfortable, and analogs feel quite nice. It seems to be a more flatter design than your generic PS4 Pro controller. Oh, I turned the controller on, there's a bit of power in there. Pressing the home button did that. Now obviously the home button is a replacement button for the PS button. We've got a speaker there which is looking promising. We've got our 3.5mm jack for our headphones, like so. It's a little bit out of focus here. And then obviously we've got our standard L1R1 bumpers and our L2R2 triggers. Do like the fact there is a move sensor on this controller as well. Again, this is not something you generically see on third-party controllers, so that's quite a nice addition. I do like the gripping on the bottom of the controller. Weight-wise, it feels very similar to PS4. The analogs, though, I'm pretty certain are slightly smaller. I'll verify that in a bit, but they do feel a little bit smaller than the PS4. But overall, this is a really nice looking controller with some really nice finishes. I'm actually very impressed at this point. So let's get on with some gameplay to see how the KINGEAR Pro Wireless Controller Gamepad holds up against Sony's PS4 DualShock controller. So after spending a week playing on the KINGEAR Pro Wireless Controller Gamepad for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 and PC, I'm happy to report this is a really good controller. I'm genuinely quite shocked at how good it is for a £32 controller versus the generic PlayStation 4 DualShock controller. It has all the features that a DualShock controller has. The one that surprised me the most was the fact that there is an inbuilt speaker in this controller, and it does work. I tested it with Dead Nation, Apocalypse Edition. I also tested it with The Last of Us, amongst other games, and the mic sounded pretty cool, and I was just really impressed and surprised that that feature actually worked, because again, it's not something you typically see on a third-party controller. The analog sticks, I did actually measure them, and they are a fraction smaller than your PlayStation 4 generic DualShock controller. So they are just that very small amount in terms of diameter, smaller than your generic PlayStation 4 controller. The design in terms of ergonomics for this controller is very different from the generic PS4 controller, because it's a lot flatter, and it's kind of most of the buttons and the analogs are almost at the same level, whereas obviously there's a lot more deviation on a PlayStation 4 DualShock controller, and I think that's why I found this controller more comfortable to play with. And the only thing I would report as a bit of a problem initially, and it took some getting used to, was I found the right trigger when playing racing games just a little odd to use. And I kind of adapted how I held the controller, and I got used to it. It's a small thing, but initially I found it a little odd trying to get the racing games and playing those with the controller. All other types of games I had no issues at all off the bat, but racing games took me a little bit longer to get used to. But overall, I love the build quality of this product. I think it's an excellent build quality. It's got the same features as the PS4 Pro DualShock. You can turn it on wirelessly with that home button instead of the PS button. As I said, that's a trademark thing. But for the cost of this controller, I love it. I think it's a fantastic replacement if you want to buy a cheap Player 2 controller, or you just want to replace your existing DualShock because it's had its day. In terms of review score, I give the KINGEAR Pro Wireless Controller Gamepad for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3 and PC a 10 out of 10. If you enjoyed the video, maybe drop me a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. Any support is appreciated as always. Thanks for watching, take care, keep well, and most importantly, come back soon.